deep dive. You know, in a world that's always pushing medical boundaries, saving lives, well, it often feels like the absolute goal, the ultimate victory.
Absolutely.
And we've seen these incredible leaps, especially with things like heart transplants. I mean, they undeniably extend physical life for so many people.
They do. But that's why today's topic is so, well, different.
Exactly. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a dimension that's often not really considered, the potential spiritual consequences of these procedures.
It's fascinating, truly, because our source material today, it really challenges our usual ways of thinking about life and death and even what healing actually means.
It really does.
It pushes us, to think critically about these unseen aspects of major medical steps. What if there's more to an organ, particularly the heart, than just, well, it's a biological job?
That's the core question, isn't it? And our material today comes from a really thought-provoking source. It's the Book of the Last Judgment by Roselis von Sass. And this book, it presents a, let's say, starkly different view on heart transplants. It suggests they come with pretty significant spiritual costs.
Yeah, significant is one word for it.
Right. Now, just
Yeah.
to be clear up front, this deep dive is about understanding this specific perspective. We're not here to endorse it or, refute it either.
No, not at all.
We're simply exploring the ideas, these powerful and, frankly, often unexpected ideas presented in this particular source. So, prepare to unpack some truly revolutionary claims, I guess you could say.
Okay, so the main argument, the source's core point, it's incredibly direct. It basically says, look, heart transplants might extend physical life, yes, but they also cause spiritual harm.
Harming.
Harm so profound that the source actually frames it as bordering on a criminal act. And this is quite striking. It claims both the lifesaver, implying the doctors, the medical teams, and the patient become spiritually guilty, accountable for this act.
Wow. So it's not just questioning if the medicine works physically.
Yeah.
It's like it's completely redefining healing, suggesting that just keeping the body going, even with the best intentions, might actually be, well, harmful if it goes against these deeper, maybe unseen spiritual laws.
That's the implication.
And here's where it gets really, really interesting. This isn't just about the physical body anymore. Our source talks about a spiritual connection, one that lasts longer than clinical death.
Right. The book asserts that for a heart transplant to even work, the heart has to still be, quote, alive.
Meaning it has to be taken out almost immediately after clinical death is declared.
Immediately. But, and this is the crucial part, the source argues that clinical death doesn't mean the person feels nothing.
Okay, hold on. That's a big claim.
It is. This perspective challenges our whole definition of death as just biological shutdown. It suggests there's this spiritual continuum that medicine, well, it just can't measure it. It can't account for it.
So what does it say happens?
The source gets specific. It claims at least 24 hours must elapse before the connections, these threads linking the spirit and the soul to the earthly body, are fully disconnected.
Spirit and soul. Are those different in this view?
Yeah, the source seems to see the spirit as like our eternal core, our true self. And the soul is more of an immediate energetic link, that connection to our physical body.
Okay.
And here's the part that, honestly, it gives you chills. As long as those connections are still there, the soul of the person who died will, quote, still feel everything that happens to their body.
Everything.
Everything, including the pain, the source emphasizes, of having its heart removed without anesthesia.
Oh, my goodness.
Imagine feeling that, even after you've been declared gone. It's horrifying.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's a truly chilling thought.
And it implies that, in our rush to save the physical, we might be totally overlooking this profound spiritual dimension and maybe even causing unimaginable suffering without realizing it.
That forces you to rethink everything you thought you knew about death, doesn't it? That final moment.
It does.
And if that suffering is, according to the source, real, then its conclusion makes a certain kind of sense within its own logic. It says these operations, these interventions, despite the good intentions, are fundamentally against nature. And therefore, spiritually, they're of little value. That's a pretty harsh judgment on life-saving medicine.
It is harsh, absolutely. But it's consistent within the source's framework. It frames these things as against nature, suggesting any intervention that kind of forces its way past these natural spiritual timelines or boundaries isn't just ineffective spiritually, it's actively harmful.
So it's challenging the whole idea that all medical progress is automatically good.
Right.
Right.
Especially when seen through this lens of, well, unseen spiritual mechanisms. It paints this picture of a huge gap between our scientific understanding and what it claims are spiritual realities.
Okay, so moving beyond that initial, very
Yep.
dramatic act of removal, what does the source say happens after the transplant, once the heart is in someone else?
Well, it makes some really intriguing claims there, too. It keeps going with this idea, stating that transplanted organs, especially the heart, will always remain foreign bodies in the recipient.
Foreign bodies,
Yeah.
even if they function perfectly well biologically.
Exactly. It acknowledges that, yeah, on the surface, the functions look identical, but it suggests there are these subtle fundamental differences that cannot be grasped by the intellect alone.
So not just physical rejection, like the immune system stuff we know about,
Yeah.
something deeper,
Mm.
energetic.
That seems to be the idea, something non-physical that prevents real, true integration. And this is where it really gets into the subtle effects on the person who received the heart.
Yeah.
The book suggests it's not just getting a new organ, it's potentially getting a whole new set of influences. Even if the heart works physically, the source says, the bearer of this strange heart will have little joy.
Little joy. Why?
Because, it claims, the person whose heart was, quote, stolen remains bound to this living heart, even though it's beating in someone else's chest now.
Bound.
Spiritually bound, this connection, this spiritual bond, the source says it lasts until the recipient dies and the heart finally decomposes.
Wait a second. So are you saying the book suggests the spirit of the donor,
Mm.
the person who died, can actually influence the recipient through the heart?
That's exactly what it suggests. A dominating influence is the phrase it uses.
Dominating influence.
Yeah.
How? How would that work? Is it like a vague feeling or?
It sounds more direct than that. The source proposes the heart isn't just a pump, it's a kind of center of being, capable of carrying more than blood. It carries a spiritual imprint, maybe an energetic echo of the donor.
Like the donor's spirit is sort of still attached to the organ.
Intertwined, maybe. That seems to be the implication, that the spiritual being remains connected to that physical heart wherever it ends up.
Wow. Okay. And does the source offer any kind of evidence for this?
Yeah.
Or examples?
It does mention something interesting, yeah. It says that studies indicate that some patients report a change in their personalities and that these patients attributed the changes to their new hearts.
Personality changes. Like what?
The source gives examples like some experienced psychoses and eccentric behaviors, and some even start to show aggression immediately after the surgery.
Aggression. Directly tied to the new heart. That's a really heavy thought.
It is heavy, and what it implies is a complete rethink of where our identity, our self, actually resides. Is it all just the brain? Or could an organ, especially the heart, be some kind of crucial spiritual anchor for who we are? If the heart really is a vessel for that kind of influence, it fundamentally changes how we understand the self, right?
It does.
It forces you to consider maybe there's a deeper non-physical link between a donor and recipient, something way beyond just matching blood types or tissue compatibility.
And this source, it doesn't just stop with human hearts, does it?
No, it broadens the scope. It extends these same spiritual concerns to animal organ transplants.
What does it say about those?
It calls them fruitless and another crime against nature. It says they bring no real ultimate benefit to science or humanity.
And consequences.
Yes, it mentions harsh spiritual consequences for the people involved. Things like potential deformities or even crawling in the beyond for their souls. It's quite graphic.
So it seems like the source isn't just focused on heart transplants then, is it? It's painting a much bigger picture.
Exactly. It's broadening the critique beyond just one specific procedure. It's becoming a more general condemnation of actions it deems against nature.
Including actions involving animals.
Right, implying that what we do to other living beings, even animals, has these profound spiritual consequences for us humans, not just in this life, but potentially in some kind of afterlife, too.
Okay, and then the source makes this incredibly stark accusation about the whole ethics of organ donation.
Ah, yes. This is probably the most provocative claim. It says, quote, with organ transplants, the era of modern cannibalism has begun.
Modern cannibalism. Wow, how does it justify that?
It links back to the earlier point. It justifies it by saying the earthly bodies from which the organs are extracted are, in most cases, not entirely dead.
Because of those lingering spiritual connections we talked about.
Precisely. If the source's definition of not entirely dead is based on those spiritual threads still being present, not just biological signs, well, that throws a whole different light on consent and the ethics of taking organs, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
And the source then frames this whole situation as a macabre trade of organs. It points fingers at global inequality.
How so?
It claims the poor, especially in, quote, third world countries, are exploited, used as sources of cheap organ.
Cheap organs that are then sold for profit.
Sold for huge profits, it implies, to medical systems in advanced economies.
So this isn't just a critique of a medical act anymore. The source is condemning the entire system.
A sweeping condemnation, yes. From the initial procedure to the global economics involved, all seen through the prism of these supposed spiritual laws.
That's a powerful statement about inequality in medical ethics viewed through this unique spiritual lens.
And a really scathing one. The source isn't pulling any punches. It frames this not just as a spiritual mistake, but as a deep ethical failure that takes advantage of economic disparities.
Does it say anything about accountability for this trade?
Oh, yes. It concludes that section by stating that all who are involved in the supply and demand chain, so everyone from donor procurement to recipient surgery and maybe even policymakers, should expect to bear some responsibility and the resulting consequences under the spiritual laws that operate in creation.
So everyone involved shares in the spiritual and ethical burden.
That's the message, a profound accountability that spreads through the whole system, regardless of how direct someone's involvement is.
So today we've really taken a deep dive into a truly unique perspective on heart transplants, haven't we? Exploring the Book of the Last Judgment by Rosales von Sast.
Definitely unique.
We've touched on these claims about the spiritual link between the deceased donor and their heart, the potential for personality shifts in the recipient.
And the broader critiques, the spiritual and ethical ones about the whole organ transplantation process, even that shocking modern cannibalism label.
Right, based on the alleged state of the donor's body and this perceived global trade. It's a viewpoint that, well, it certainly makes you stop and think, challenges some very deeply held beliefs about life, death, and medicine.
Absolutely. And this deep dive, by presenting such a radically different way of looking at organ transplants, it really invites you, the listener, to consider more than just the physical results.
Yeah.
To think about these unseen, maybe unmeasurable implications. What if extending physical life does carry some kind of echo in a spiritual realm? And what questions would that raise about the ultimate cost of saving a life in that way?
It certainly gives us all a lot to reflect on regarding the boundaries of science and perhaps the mysteries of the spirit.